Fisker fam. Am I overblown? I feel a little overblown. Hold on. Blow that down. Hey, Fisker. Beauty of editing. Hey, Fisker fam. Welcome back to another Ocean Currents podcast. I am one of your co-hosts here, Andrew Bock, along with our other glorious host, Bill Spohn. And we've got a full board today. We've also got Miles Sedgwick and a couple of our fearless FOA. Some of the more noticeable and recognizable names, especially for our EU friends, Jose and Geeta. And that's the group for today. Miles, tell us a little bit about the group you pulled together here.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. The main purpose of the show today is really to get into a part of the Fisker universe that really needs to be talked about, I think. There's a lot of discussion on discourse, on Facebook, even YouTube comments about this. I could go on and on about the number of people who really feel like the EU and UK are sometimes left out of the conversation. And I think that that couldn't be farther from the truth. I think for the FOA, having a really vibrant scene in the EU and UK is really, really important. And there's so much happening. There's so much going on all the time. And so what we want to do in this episode is get into some of those details, explain a little bit about what's happening on the UK and EU side of things, and have an opportunity for two really active members of the FOA team talk to you all about what we're working on. So I guess I'll just kick us off with a question, really. I'll start with you, Geeta, if you don't mind. When you see comments from people about the role of, or how important the EU is to the FOA, what's your response? How do you feel about that?
I don't feel left out because I'm a part of this. So it has taken me some time to actually put myself in their place and be like, where are you coming from? I don't understand this. But yeah, if you're not an active member of the community, I totally understand that you can feel left out. And I think a lot of it has to do with language barriers. And a lot has to do with, for the Danish owners, which I know very well, they're in another place in their life than where I am. It's they're not very techy. They bought a car. Like if they had bought a BMW or Audi or whatever, they bought a car and they expected to go to a shop and have it serviced and fixed when something was wrong. And you can't do that anymore. I mean, yeah, you can do that, but you also have to figure a lot more out on your own. And yeah, so I understand, but I don't feel the same way.
And there's structure in place so that the voices of the EU and the UK owners are heard. Can either of you speak towards that?
Sure. We have the discourse community forum where, I usually don't look at where people are from. Yeah, if we have to help them out because of something physical, like finding a tech or something, yeah, you have to know where they're from. But besides that, it doesn't matter if you are in Germany or Canada or Denmark or Norway or whatever. It doesn't matter. So I don't see the whole region barrier. I mean, we're in the same boat and we have to have these cars on the road. So yeah.
What I'm curious, when you say sort of the Danish owners looking for a car, right? They were just looking to get into a car. What, I guess, what do you think the thinking was, since you've spoken to so many of them, as it relates to getting involved with a new brand like this? Was it because of Henrik being Danish, and it sort of felt like we're going to support our guy, and we're going to trust that this car is going to ship like a BMW iX would? I'm just sort of, it's an interesting sort of position to take, knowing that it was not only a new model. I think anyone buying a car knows, like, the first year of a new model is always challenging. This wasn't the first year of a new model. This was the first year of a new model of a new company.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people buying the car had a lot of confidence in Henrik, as he's been in the business for many years. And we're a small country, and when someone from Denmark does something big like creating a car company, we're all like, yay! And I heard from a lot of owners here that they actually really researched the car and where it was built and everything, and they were like, this can't go wrong. I mean, yeah, the company might go bankrupt, but there will be parts, there will be like this safety guard on, because usually in Denmark, when a company goes bankrupt, someone will sweep in, buy it, and yeah, maybe it will be uh, uh, less great advantages and stuff like that, but you wouldn't be left out in the dark. Or at least, if you would be left out in the dark, it would be with something, well, not as expensive as as a car. So
Super interesting.
I think people really just felt safe going into this adventure.
Yeah, I think a lot of us did. I think when you talk about the sort of the research done, what you're saying almost entirely echoes what my position was, which was, well, Magna's been in the business for 75 years, and I've driven a bunch of Magna cars, and I have relatives. I'm from Graz, Austria originally, so I have relatives who have worked in the Magna facility. So I was like, this is going to be, from that perspective, it
What
should
could
be
possibly go wrong?
right. Yes, and now I have a car sitting in my driveway where the door handles don't open. So what could possibly go wrong? You can't get in or out.
That's funny. I'm curious about something, Jose. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the UK situation. I know that the UK made headlines in the Fisker news about all of these abandoned Fisker vehicles on the side of the road, and everybody was talking about how to get one for really cheap. What is, besides that little headline, what is something that's really interesting about what's going on with Fiskers in the UK right now?
I guess the first obvious thing is we're the only right-hand drive market. So we have some nuances, like we have a different water pump to fix the water pump issue. So, trying to get hold of the right-hand drive version of the water pump was a different path to the left-hand drive version of the water pump. So there's been a few nuances from that point of view, but we also get some advantages in that certain things are easier to work on because of the placement under the hood and so on is different for certain things. So that's an obvious difference, but it's pros and cons. Like we have Chevalier are based in the UK, so I can drive to their shop and talk to them directly about my PKC, and they can plug in, and they have all of the diagnostics they need to work out what's going on. That's like a real advantage as a UK owner, is having them as an active OEM involved in building this vehicle that we're now working with on our doorstep. So, there's pros and cons. The obvious cons is we're a very small number of vehicles on an island where everything was imported. So now, for example, those vehicles that were abandoned on the side of the road that were eventually scooped up and sold through auction, trying to register those is a nightmare because they had been imported, but only half the job was done because the dealers never actually registered them. So there's no certificate of conformity and all the other things that you need to make the government happy that this is a kosher vehicle, that can go on the road, which is crazy because you'd think the government would go, okay, right, well, we've seen one, we can do the other 50, 60, 70, no problem. But we're dealing with a government. They're not going to play nice like that. So every individual car, you have to jump through some serious hoops to get it registered if it's an unregistered vehicle. So there's definitely a few nuances, but as I say, pros and cons. But overall, I don't think the experience is that different to anywhere else. We're well represented within the FOA between myself and two or three other very active members who are part of the development team and part of the team that work on getting service shops fired up and all that kind of stuff. So we have service centers here. And as Geeta says, online support is the same everywhere. So from the practical standpoint of owning the vehicle now, since the FOA has done all of the work it's done over the last year or so, it's not that different to anywhere else.
Right. And in the US, we have Mountain Ranger on YouTube, and you guys have Come in Handy now. So there's just slight differences in representation and tutorials. But the other question I had for you about the UK is, and this is actually for both UK and EU, how do you think people are feeling about the version of the operating system that they have? Most people are on 2.1 still. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, you've also got to remember that we got 2.1 before the US, right? So it's another one of those kind of swings and roundabouts. We got that first, but then the US getting 2.2 first. And the actual differences between 2.1 and 2.2 they're not huge, right? It doesn't dramatically change the vehicle. There's definitely some great, changes that are, make the vehicle a bit better. But I was, not wildly upset for the last few months, that I was on 2.1. I'm very lucky being part of the development team that in the last 4 or 5 weeks I have got 2.2, being part of the guinea pig team to work out how we can install 2.2. And so I can definitely, speak from my own direct experience that the difference is not wild. So, some of the stuff that's important, like the battery management system changes that we got in 2.1 that make the 12-volt system much, much better and handled in a more healthy way. If I was still on 2.0 waiting for 2.2, I'd be upset like some Americans might have been. But the fact that I'm on 2.1, so I've already got that kind of a key important update, I'm not that worried. The vehicle works, and the other stuff that 2.2 brings is not game changing, and it's going to come eventually. It's unfortunately just a matter of patience.
Going back to something Geeta said a little while ago about language barrier. There's been some efforts made to overcome that with the Zoom meetings, right?
Yeah. And I think it's helping. I hope it's helping.
So at the beginning, I mean, in the town halls, you can go in and there's instructions on the landing page when you arrive at the meeting to get a translated version, basically streamed in real time. Is that correct?
Yeah. We just have to remember to speak very slowly.
And clearly.
Which no one remembers.
It's catching up. I have a couple follow-up questions, Jose. How many right-hand drive cars do we know did Fisker produce?
It's around 400. We had a peak of around 300 registered. That then dipped quite a lot because in the UK we have some very nice laws that protect people that finance products. And so unlike the whole Chase situation of trying to get money back, here you just say to the finance company, this car's a dud, have it back, and they give you all your money back, no questions asked. So you just have to send them one letter and that's it. So obviously quite a few people took advantage of that, and that then flooded our market with quite a few vehicles going through the auction process that had low miles, but really nothing wrong with them. It was just the owner was no longer willing to take the risk once Fisker went bankrupt. So I'd say last I checked, it was like 200 and something that were on the road, but there's another 100 and something that are in circulation in auctions or currently off the road for whatever reason.
I thought it was a lot more cars in UK.
Well, it's
Yeah,
not
at
many.
400, it was surprising to me. I mean, at that point, you might as well just switch, right? And just bring some left-hand drive cars in there and during the rest of the world. But, you know.
Yay!
Yeah, and it's one of the challenges. One of the challenges we had was getting service shops to sign up. Was like, it's not like you can say to them, "Hey, there's all these cars for you to service." Once you've got one or two signed up, they're going to go, "Well, hey, it's an electric vehicle. You look at it once every couple of years and say, "Hey, it looks okay," and off you go. That they're not going to get loads of business out of being a Fisker service center. Now, luckily, we've got two or three that are really keen to help, and the owners and management of those service centers are owners themselves, which I think is in the end what made the difference. They were personally invested and said, "Hey, look, I'm in the industry. I might as well help." So we do have, as I said, coverage both across South, Midlands, and North. At the moment, Ireland's a bit of a black hole. And if you're right in the very north of Scotland, you've got a bit of a way to travel down, but there's ways and means at least.
I think there's only like 3 or 4 cars in Ireland.
Yeah.
Are there any in Italy? I was driving around Italy for 2 weeks. There are some. I didn't see any.
I know of 2 in Italy.
They were never sold there, but some have made their way there.
Sure. That makes sense.
Cars have made their way to mysterious places like Iran,
Ukraine.
Yeah.
So
really,
yeah.
Well, and some of the ones in Ukraine are US vehicles that have been imported, which is even crazier, right?
Yeah.
And they're looking for software updates. And I've seen a couple posts. I'm not sure if this happened or not, but there was one guy posting about how he wanted to take his US Fisker with him to Kenya or something. I'm pretty sure it was Kenya. And I was like,
I think
going to work?
If I was bringing a car to Kenya, I don't know that it would be this one.
They have plenty of cars in Kenya already, so you can just get one.
With the Toyota.
Yeah.
You definitely need to be a sucker for punishment if you're going to take it with you to Kenya.
Yeah. I mean, or you're just willing to work on everything yourself. I mean, absolutely everything. Yeah. So, I don't know.
Speaking of serviceability, can you speak towards the availability of parts?
Sorry?
The availability of parts.
Oh, they're there.
Yeah.
I think actually this is where Europe are better off than US. Fisker Austria has opened up their warehouse of Magic for service providers, so they are able to register and actually purchase parts from their warehouse. And I know it's been a process to get that rolling, but what I'm hearing now is it's actually working, and parts are rolling into shops and put into Fiskers. So, and we have tried to have some of the US techs to also sign up, but I'm not sure how that's going. So for that, I think we're lucky in Europe.
And you have Tidal Wave, and Tidal Wave is a great place for people to get parts from, right?
Yeah. We don't have that many different parts yet, but I know that 2 pallets of door handles are arriving in a few days. So
that was going to be one of my follow-up questions on this is how are things like the door handles, and I guess, Jose, you mentioned the water pump. Talk about how the difference in the way that those have been handled or managed in your respective markets versus what we're dealing with here, where, it doesn't seem like there's a defined or agreed upon path for how these handles and some of this other stuff is going to be managed.
I mean, the obvious difference is there's no recall here, right? So anyone that wants to get the fix knows up front they're just going to have to pay for it. And that's probably, part of the pain that Europeans feel is, hey, the US have got this recall and we don't, and so they're going to get reimbursed and we're not. But at the same time, at least it's in your own control to just go and get it fixed. Yes, it's at your cost, but hey, if you got into this car for next to nothing, then who cares? If you got into the car early, like I did, I paid full RRP. It hurts a bit more to be to be paying to fix something that definitely should have been a recall.
Yeah, the few
But
$1,000s in service bills when you're still paying your several $1,000s in payments is not really, that those two things are not typically,
Yeah.
in
I
hand in hand.
remember back in November, I think it was, that we found, I think it was 1 or 2 pallets of the water pumps for the left-hand drive cars and a pallet of right-hand drive pumps. And we were just like, "Ugh, okay, we need this." So we purchased it from with our own money and just distributed it evenly across Europe and in people's garages and stuff like that. And just, yeah.
Yeah, I
Was,
think that's an important point, actually, is that Europeans have banded together in places as like micro groups of, hey, we need 10,000 euros to get this now. And so people just threw some money at the problem and,
yeah.
hey, we've got it sorted and we can distribute them and reimburse people, but there's been a fair bit of that going on.
Oh, that's interesting. So you've done like some crowdfunded sort of like
Yeah.
Yeah.
last minute type of situations or things like
I
that.
think the water pumps, I think we were like 5 people just putting in the money for the pallet, getting it delivered, and then shipping, just split the shipment. And
And figure it out from there.
yeah, exactly. And it was quite nice because we got some pumps to Austria and we got some pumps in Norway. And a lot of Danish people are going on ski vacation in Norway and Austria in the winter. So when they had a breakdown with the water pump and they were like, "Oh, what am I going to do?" I was like, "Just a second." And then I called either Jens in Norway or Michael in Austria and said, "Do you have more pumps?" And they were like, "Sure, you can just ship me one of yours. And then I'll just," yeah. So they could switch out the pump immediately. That was very nice.
See, these are the kinds of, at least, I read about people getting into their Volvo EX90s and, or not being able to get into their Volvo EX90s, or like all these problems with, really established brands, and nothing. They're just like stuck. They're just sort of sitting there. And, for, I don't know that any of us signed up for this type of experience, but the reality is, I think what we're learning and figuring out in real time is sort of the nimbleness of this type of organization being involved in the automotive process like this. I mean, we're all learning, and um, it's refreshing sometimes to hear things like that, where it's like, oh my God, yeah, I go on a ski trip and breaks down, it works
We're,
out.
we're in we're in control of our own destiny now, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, if with an established OEM that has a problem, yes, it probably will get fixed, but you're at the mercy of them fixing it and rolling it out in their time frame and whatever that might be. And often cases we can act faster for sure.
That's very cool. Yeah, and am I making something up here, Geeta? But I remember at one point you were like on a road trip across Europe and helping out other Fisker owners
No.
or something along the
Well,
way.
not Europe exactly. Or, well, I went across Denmark and paired key fobs, and I think I paired like 300 key fobs and NFC cards. But yeah, I go to Spain twice a year in this most southern part of Spain, Malaga. And when I was there the last time, there was a guy there from Norway with a boot loop problem that
Hmm.
came to the house we rent, and I fixed it in the driveway, and he was happy, and yeah, it was awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those stories. It's like, because it's, here in the US, we're doing similar things of like driving all over the country to help people out. But like from one country to the next, and, some guy is in Spain, was he there on vacation or something and just had the boot loop happen? Or
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
I've done some weird things. Or, well, it's not weird in the Fiskiverse, but I think that my friends and family are like, "You're weird." At some point, my kids were getting like ticks because of the sound of the Fisker, the space station sound,
Yeah.
because they're like, "Who is coming?" I was like, "It's just Dad. He went shopping and he's back now." I was like, "Oh."
My neighbor across the street complains about that still when I'm pulling up. He's like, I thought you said you were going to be able to turn that off. I was like, I don't know. It was in a software update, but it never happened. So sorry about that. It's because I just have to pull up and then I'm like backing in. And so there's it's both noises. It's the pulling up noise and then it's the reverse noise. So he gets the twofer.
I don't know. I figure at least it's not the bonging noise that some cars do in reverse.
No.
I much prefer the Fisker space noise than the bong, bong, bong. Like, not one of my neighbours' cars does that whenever they're backing into their garage, and I'm like, man, that's annoying.
I think a lot of the American EVs do that, if I'm not mistaken. I think there's more beeping and bonging on the Chevys and things like that than there are on these, which kind of makes sense.
We overdo it in just about every category in this country, and yeah, backing up is one of those things. But I did receive the world's biggest compliment yesterday, though. I have to tell you guys about my 11-year-old is like basically 11, but going on like 16, so like already acting like a teenager. But I was getting in the car, and it was like out of nowhere, I hear this comment from the back seat, like, "This car is actually really cool." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So now you're finally coming around to it, even though I'm also, like Geeta was saying, it's very common that people in my family and my friend circle are like, the things that you do with that car are really weird. Like, I'm going on Sunday on a road trip, and I'm leaving at 5 a.m. so that I can get to Boston or Massachusetts to meet up with Edward so that I can do a Bluetooth, a BLE key sniffing from like 1 to 3. And specifically leaving at 5 a.m. so I can get there on time to meet with him. So those are the kind of things that we do, right?
And then having to explain what BLE sniffing is.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it's also the fun. This is part of the fun, is like figuring this stuff. If you are interested in it, if this is something that you find, fun, of value, intellectually or whatever. But that is, I think, the line that you need to draw and distinguish for people when it's, at least the one that I do when people ask me about the car, is I just say, look, what is, I've said this before, what is your tolerance for pain? And and how willing are you to just sort of troubleshoot, figure things out? You know?
I mean, what I say to people is, it's a great car, but you got to get out of it what you put in. It's not a car that is just going to sit on the drive and take you from A to B. It's a car that you're going to have to be involved with and be involved with the community. And if you're not willing to do that, you're going to have a bad time.
So we need to start a support group for people who have an emotional relationship with their vehicle.
This is true.
I don't think that's abnormal. Think about how many cars and coffee groups there are, and how many people. I mean, it is a very common thing for people to have these types of relationships with their vehicles, or with a group associated with their vehicles. Ours just happens to be necessary. In order for another option, as opposed to an option, right? Like, I drive my BMW E46. I don't belong to the clubs that meet up on Sundays and talk about their mods and all that kind of stuff. But they exist, right? That's an option. You can do that. With the Fisker, it's not really about like, hey, which mods are you doing? It's more about like, hey, how do you open the door? Hey.
Yeah.
You need new handles, Andrew.
Yeah, I know I do. I need new handles. Yeah, my parents were here this weekend, and they were like, "We're not going to get in because the door
just sell a kidney. A kidney. You can afford new handles.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gen 2A is a game changer. Here's another question for you guys. This is like so by the time we publish this episode, the VP role for the FOA will already have been selected. But this has been a topic through the entire election period of the vice president role. Everybody's been asking, like I've been asking in some of the video interviews, but also a lot of people on Discourse have been asking about how we can make the VP candidate, like the future person who will be VP, how can we make EU and UK more of a central part of this great club? Like those are actual words from somebody on Discourse. So what do you think about making sure that role focuses, and FOA in general focuses more on EU and UK?
Well, for one thing, if we take away the whole language stuff and things that make people special in their country, I just think we need to stop treating FOA like North America and Europe, just one FOA across the world. And yeah, you are located somewhere. Maybe you're in UK, maybe you're in Canada, maybe you're in US, and we'll fix the problems locally. I mean, in Europe, we have all these country liaisons. That's actually how I started in FOA. So I was just the Danish country liaison, helping out with like putting information from FOA into our local community and the other way around. And that's fine for the information level. But for the whole, where do I belong? I just think we need to stop having like EU discussions and US discussions. Just have discussions.
Yeah, I agree. It's really hard because, seeing everything that I see, it feels like we're very non-biased in the way things are done already. But because there are differences, and there's always going to be some differences, people tend to, jump to those and go, "Hey, they've got this. Why haven't I? Or I've got that. They've got, and so on the one hand, it's like, well, we need to address those differences because they exist, right? But on the other hand, you don't want to keep highlighting them all the time because we are, as Geeta says, just one global group of people in the same shit situation, and and we're working through it.
But yours are, at least you have right-hand drive ones, so that's a doubly. That's like a shit sandwich.
Yeah,
yours is compounded because of the
Shit with a twist.
like inside of the car.
But the people that I talk to every day is a really even mix of people from the US, Canada, and all across Europe. It's not like it's 20 Americans and 5 Europeans. It's a really even mix, and I think that's something maybe we should try and highlight more to show that there is input going in from both sides of the pond, and there is activity going on every single day on both sides of the pond. But it's a hard balance because there are always going to be differences.
I usually forget where people actually are located. Now I have this widget on my phone with like Sybil's and Christian and Jose's time zone, so I at least have some idea. But once I got off job, I had to give Sybil a message, so I just called her right up, and she was like, "Hello," and I was like, "Oh my god, sorry, did I wake you?" And she's like, "Yeah." Oh, so yeah, I think when you're in the when you're actually in the community, it's easy to forget that there are regions and regional differences and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, I'm on 2.1 and blah blah blah. This is my issue.
Yeah, but Geeta, I will say this: there are messages from you on WhatsApp sometimes where I'm like, "What time is it there? Why are you still responding?" Yeah. You're a night owl.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I think
I'm
a lot
also
of the
good at napping.
I think a lot of the volunteers are night owls.
Well, I think it's the only time you have to work on it, right? Everyone's got families and kids and jobs, and it's like, what are we going to do? All right, I'm going to do all my stuff, and then I'm going to dive in and start messing around with this. And that's why you need a good headlight if you're going to work on your cars, because I do most of my work at night on anything.
Well, yeah, my Fisker bricked on my drive a few weeks ago, and I spent 3 nights between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. With Guillaume from Canada remoting into my car to fix it, because that was like the time he had available. I was like, well, hey, whatever, I'll be up, no problem. And yeah, so that's part of the reason I ended up on 2.2 was because, as well as wanting to test it, it was also one of the steps we went through to try and unbrick my car. At 1 a.m. with it on life support from my wife's truck. I had jump leads from my wife's truck onto the Fisker because I didn't have a like a big enough ampage charger. So I was like, hey, there's a big alternator in that truck, that'll do. So I had the Fisker on life support at 1 a.m. with all the lights going on and off, and then locking it and unlocking it, and it's still got the stupid old locking sound. So any of my neighbors must have been looking out the window going, what the hell is this guy doing? But it's another example of the collaboration that does go on across the pond, right? Is if someone's in need, then you can make it work remotely.
Does yours have both the old locking sound and the new one, or just the old locking sound?
I currently am living with both sounds. It's
same.
Not nice.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't alone.
No, I'm also dual sound.
Great.
I was dual sound till I went to Evolution Autosport, and it was the removal of a fuse, and it cured it. I didn't know a fuse would do it.
Interesting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Usually it's
I know what fuse that is.
BCM that needs an update or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, all he did was just pull a fuse, popped it back in, and it's gone. The double
Jose, what was done over the air or over sort of remotely? What were you able to accomplish?
Honestly, I mean, well, my problem was the classic gear shift. It wouldn't come out of park. And the problem is there's like 17 different reasons that could cause that. And honestly, by the end, we were just randomly trying stuff.
Wow.
And yeah, so I'm not 100% sure what actually fixed it, but in the end, we re-sent the secure keys to all the ECUs. We'd re-flashed everything to 2.2. We pulled the high voltage emergency loop and then disconnected the 12 volt and left it for 15 minutes, then put it all back together again. And some combination of everything that we did over 3 nights at 3 a.m. Eventually it fixed it, and it's been okay since. So,
is the this is going to be my last right-hand drive car joke. Is the 12 volt is the 12 volt disconnect the same where you have the in the back and the front? No, you don't have to do.
So that was one of the things that got me was, so Guillaume is on FaceTime and under my hood, and I'm like showing him under the right-hand drive hood, and he's trying to point me in the right direction of what to do. And he goes, oh, right, that nut there, undo that nut and take the wire off. I'm like, okay, done that. He said, right, it should have no power now. I'm like, dude, it's still got power.
So that's okay, great. Yeah. That's fun.
Wow.
That's a fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. The boot loop fix was also like a night owl collaboration with Marge.
Yeah, well, you were involved in my boot loop, Mike, because I managed to induce the boot loop problem in trying to fix my car. So Geeta also helped me getting the right USB stick and the files and everything so I was driving around with no screens for like nothing. All 3 screens, the AC, the main, and the dashboard, just blank. So
I did that for a month, Jose.
Yeah, I don't know how you did it for a month.
So were you using like a speedometer app on your phone to just make sure?
Yeah, I had to open my phone and leave propped up so I had some idea of my speed. And I ended up driving to one of the service centers that's like an hour and a half from me, and turning up. And I've only ever spoken to this guy on the phone. So I turn up and go, hey, it's me, Jose. And he goes, hey, how's it going? What are you doing here? I said, can I borrow your USB to do the boot loop fix, please? And he goes, sure. Pulls it out the drawer, hands it over, and he said, do you need like the cable or the software? And I was like, no, I've got all that, that's fine. So he just gave me the USB. I parked in like the local supermarket car park for half an hour, had a conference call that like for real work, while my car reinstalled its ICC. And I remember halfway through that conference call, I literally did a big cheer. I went, woo! And everyone was like, what's going on? I was like, oh, sorry. Yeah, my car just fixed itself. Carry on. You know? So,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
that was a fun day.
The boot
So
loop
great.
is a shit show. It really is. Yeah. Mine started in the end of November last year, and it was fixed in, I think, beginning of February, end of January, somewhere.
Wow.
And in between that, all the things we tried out made all my screens disappear. So I taped we have this thing called a safe here, which is actually like you can warn people about speed cameras and stuff like that, but it also shows the speed. So I taped it to the small screen. So I had some idea because I don't have a home charger, and every attempt to fix the ICC took like 20% of the battery. So I had to drive the car to charge it.
How were you keeping track of what the charge was if you didn't have access to your screens? I mean, it's one thing to have your phone up and know what the speed is or something, but everything else.
We were connected at the cloud at the time, so I had the app, the Fisker app.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
That sounds scary.
And the reason that it didn't work is because it has to be a very, very specific USB stick that you use for this. And we tried out all sorts of weird USBs. And in the end, Sammer from Sweden mailed me his USB stick, so I could use that.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think this is another great example of what Europe has done and been heavily involved with the FOA is that boot loop fix. We got the files and then Geeta spent a long time
Oh,
trying to work out how to make them work consistently. And that was all European led. So, and
and
that
it was
now is a
not.
fix that.
Yeah, I just remember we had to make the USB stick in on the Linux server in our basement, and it was my husband who actually did the whole let me make that image thing. So he was heavily involved as well. Big thank you. But yeah, and then I just sat in the car and pulled the fuses and waited and waited. And I was like, Madge, how long does it take? And he was like, oh, I think 45 minutes. I'm like, I've been here for 2 hours. Just wait a little more, little more. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember the feeling when it worked and that awful video started. And
Yeah.
I cheered so loud, so my neighbor came running out because he thought I won the lottery or something. He was like, "What did you win? What did you win?"
I'm glad it wasn't just me that cheered out loud when I fixed mine then.
The awful video you're talking about when Henrik starts.
Yeah.
I play that at the start of every drive. You don't do that anymore? That's great.
I don't know, Andrew.
Oh, all right.
Enjoy the ride of your life, and I'm
Yes.
always like, yeah, but
I'll
it's
see you
been
on the
well
road.
So one of the big 5 TV channels here in the UK did a piece about EV ownership, kind of having a broad look at EV ownership, and they interviewed me as an example of how it can go not so well. And like most of the 30 seconds that I got on this program was bloody Henrik playing that video in the car. And of course he says the ride of your life, and the camera pans to me, and I just went, well, I don't know if it's the ride of my life. So that was like my 5 seconds of fame on UK national TV was Henrik Fisker chatting in my car and me responding to him. It was awful.
That's so funny. Jose, it's getting darker and darker over there. We want to be aware of the fact that you still.
I've turned on my studio lighting, so we're good.
And Geeta's been waiting patiently for dinner over there, so we know it's getting late for you guys. Are there any other comments that you think EU and UK people should know, or just global Fisker in general? I mean, is any other things that you wanted to mention that we didn't ask you about?
Patience.
I was going to say exactly the same. Patience.
And remember, We are not Fisker. It's not a company. It's not alive anymore. They're just happy volunteers, which, well, I usually am. I really go for hours of drives to help people out, and we do meetups, and I love it. And I really want to continue do it. But then there's always this Karen type that shows up and are like, "Oh, you need to fix my car." I'm like, "Well, I'm not a tech, and I don't have tools or anything. I don't even know how to do it." So yeah, patience.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we talked earlier about, the balance of addressing the differences, but acting as one global organization. And I think that for me is the key. If everyone can take that idea away and treat each other that way, we'll get a lot further. And yeah, have patience. The differences are being addressed and are being rebalanced, and I'm confident that in some months or a year or two's time, we will have an ecosystem where it really genuinely doesn't matter where you are. You'll be able to get the same software and similar parts access and similar service availability. It's all going the right direction. It's just, you got to remember the mess that we had a year ago. It's not something that you tidy up and get sorted quickly.
For sure. I think that's that's got to be everyone's sort of overall attitude towards this, is knowing that this is not stuff that's going to happen necessarily overnight or even over week or over month. This is stuff that's going to take, in some cases, a little bit of time, but um, you guys have shown us a bunch of different ways in which we've already, you know, gotten over some pretty big hurdles collectively. And it's, I think, a good blueprint and a nice way of sort of showing some momentum here as we are trying to figure out and tackle some of the what many consider to be larger tasks as it relates to software updates and things like that are going to require, I think, a lot more collaboration and coordination.
And
You know,
hey, we just developed our own software, or
Mhm.
well, with the help of Chevalier, we funded it with the community, and we built an app which is looking very very cool thanks to Jose and his team.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't do that if
And that's going to be
Tesla.
available everywhere at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And the
Mhm.
PKC 21 will be available at the same time. We're a group of 4 people who are trying to like pinpoint where are the members, where are the volunteers.
D-
So
doesn't the app work in several languages too?
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
there's been a big team of people that have worked on translations, and continue to, because obviously the app is evolving quickly, and so we have to keep updating the translations to go with it. So yeah, there's a big collective effort going on there across many volunteers.
yeah. And I'm not doing the German one because we like the Germans, and I don't do German, even though people are like, "Why don't you speak German? You're like next to Germany."
Close
I don't.
enough, huh?
I don't.
Yeah. Well, I think if there's one really clear takeaway from this call, it's that Andrew really wants a right-hand drive Fisker. So, Jose,
yes,
if you could make that happen, just
Well,
ship him one
you
directly.
can get them for, like, what would the exchange rate be? Like $8,000 US. You can pick them up at auction here.
oh,
They're
that
super
actually seems
cheap.
worth it.
Yeah, well, because they're not registered, they're like crazy cheap. So buy it here, ship it over, and off you go.
It's
I'll
not the
sit in
worst
the wrong
idea.
side of the car.
Yeah, I wonder. Well, I wonder if the handles.
They work.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. They're working those. All right. That's good to know. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. I think this was an enlightening, fun conversation for all of us. We got to learn a little bit more about how you guys see the relationship between these two. I think we're probably all in agreement on that front. I don't really look at it as any distinguished kind of difference between, overseas EU or UK or anywhere else and here. But super, it was. No, that's the wrong word. It was great to hear that that's sort of your perspective as well. And just knowing, I didn't even know some of the ICC stuff was even sort of born out of the EU side of troubleshooting. So
I think we had the first cars. It was a symptom of the 2.2 update in Europe. We were 25 test cars, and I think 4 or 5 of those cars were hit with the ICC boot loop. And someone had to volunteer to get a fix out there. So yay, me. So yeah, so
Nice.
we were like Madge in California, Sam in Sweden, and me, just trying out things. And it's quite annoying when there's a guy sitting in sunny California in November, and you just see that his ICC is reinstalling and working, and you're sitting in snow in Denmark, freezing cold at
Yeah.
night, and
Yeah.
like, it doesn't work, Madge, please help. So yeah.
and he's like, I'll be back. I got to go surfing. And you're like,
Yeah.
I don't understand. Yeah, I get it.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Completely.
Well, thanks again, Miles. Thanks, Bill. Geeta,
Yeah, thank
Jose, great conversation. Appreciate you guys joining us, and we will be back again soon with another FOA podcast and some more updates. And obviously, there's a lot in store coming out, more things with the app and software. So we'll have many more conversations to come. Thanks, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.